So let's get right down to it. So LGBTQ, right?
These minorities are insidious.
You can see even within the party, there's people from everywhere, different countries, different religions, different genders, different skin colours, different heights.
But they will say, you didn't agree with me, right, I'm going to kill you.
What does the word woke mean to you?
Listen, woke to me is a word out of the Urban Dictionary. So it can mean anything to different people.
So let's get right down to it. So LGBTQ, right?
It's a word that describes certain people, I suppose, and certain ways of thinking, which I don't really concur with, if I'm perfectly honest. So it doesn't really mean anything to me as such.
I'd say exactly the same.
So there's been a debate around that and around trans. Now, there are many women who are feminists who have taken on the debate on that particular issue, who have themselves suffered a pile-on and so on. And it's a lack of respect that different people have different views.
People are different, but people also can do the same things. You know, people who are white, black, of different religions, can all work towards the same common goals, can all have the same fundamental core values, but they also might have different values. And I think respecting that there are differences within people's opinions isn't necessarily a bad thing at all.
Woke it's been created. Been created by those who feel they want to become vulnerable.
What would you say is your most conservative belief?
Pride in our nation.
What makes you proud about this country?
Oh, we have a great history, which we should be proud of. It's one that people that have come to us from all different parts of the world can share, actually, in that history. I reject all this negativism, what people call wokeism. I reject all of that. We have a great history. We've given a lot of benefit to the world, enormous benefit. It's something we can be proud of. Yes, we've made mistakes in the past, we recognise that, but overall, the balance sheet is in credit enormously. So I think as a nation we've contributed disproportionately to making this a better world, and we must go on doing that. And I think we are a sort of store of good values and a lot of good people in our country. So I'm very optimistic about the future.
How would you define wokeism?
Well, wokeism seems to be a distortion of historical reality that focuses disproportionately on what I would call identity politics, and therefore instead of bringing people together, what it does is separates them, and I object to that.
Can you give an example?
Well, I mean, I think it's self-evident.
What does the term woke mean to you?
Woke? Haven't the foggiest notion, accepting that somehow or other I know what woke means.
You know, I wouldn't like to use that word because I think it's really, it undermines every single person. His or her values is undermined by the simple word of woke.
There's an attack on us all the time. I think we had to be very much on, I was going to say on the defence, but I think we ought to go on to the attack against malign forces.
Not a lot of people understand what it is. And when you transmit that to everyone else, and then we begin to think, what is it actually? And where are we going with that?
Almost non-identifiable as such. There's a whole raft of attacks on freedom of speech.
But I think there's different levels of woke. I think some people, use it as an excuse to hate rather than to accept, behind the guise that being woke is accepting. So, I don't hate anyone because of their skin or their religion or their sexuality or their gender or anything. But you get people who latch onto these ideas and hop on it and say, oh, you're a terrible person because you've tried to have a discussion. I'm confused. I don't understand. It's often with gender. I'm confused. Can you explain it to me? I'm not saying I don't agree. I'm not saying I do. I just don't understand. And then they say, well, that's because you haven't blah, blah, blah. You haven't taken the time. Well, I'm taking the time to try and understand it. So woke is a very, I think, woolly term for that reason, and it can have different meanings to different people.
People say to me, in an ordinary conversation, they say something about, I don't know, in private conversation, and then they say, actually, I shouldn't say that. And I say, well, why shouldn't you say that? And they say, yeah, you're probably right, really. Maybe I should be free to say that. And the trouble is, if they say that, then they feel they're going to be under attack by a minority, it is a minority, of people who are going to threaten them. These minorities are insidious. They are prepared to do unacceptable things against the individual.
I don't know if, you don't necessarily agree with everything that's said by someone who claims to be woke, but then again, the people who say they don't agree are often the most tolerant people. They have friends from all diverse backgrounds. You can see even within the party, there's people from everywhere, different countries, different religions, different genders, different skin colours, different heights, different styles. You see all kinds, and yet when they're all saying we're all conservative, all of a sudden there's a very open conversation. They sit back and say, well, they're probably along the same lines as me, so I can talk to them, and they kind of forget about these barriers. And so I don't know. I think it's a woolly word, and I think, to be honest, I think it's more of a fashion. I think tolerance is more a word you should use rather than woke.
But they will say, you didn't agree with me, right, I'm going to kill you. That's a bit extreme, but there are people like that who do that, and that's a horrible threat to have in this country, in any country, but this country particularly, which stands for freedom.
What does the term woke mean to me? I think, to me, it's it implies a level of intolerance to people who have different views from you. And I think we've reached a stage now where we can't have any form of debate without people piling on other people who may have a different opinion than them.
Our country is great, and that's what we are. Greatness of this country. Having the opportunity to work and do things, that is what I want.
Can you give an example of someone who's a proponent of wokeism, if you can?
A proponent of wokeism. So, I need you to explain to me what you mean by a proponent of wokeism.
Of someone who's woke, basically.
Of woke. I don't want to get into that debate because I don't want to go down that track. You asked me a question of where the debate is. So I think when people accuse somebody of being woke, it is from one side of the argument where they disagree with what the other party believe is a very progressive view, but is one that society should accept. And I've given you the example on that, which is trans. So there are some people who feel uncomfortable with the fact that there are mixed loos. I'm just giving a very tiny example there. And because they feel uncomfortable of it, they are deemed to be intolerant of those who do say, no, that should be different. So I think people who, in this particular case, do not believe in mixed loos, would accuse people who believe in that of being woke.
What's an example of something that is woke?
Well, I suppose it, again, depends on your opinion, I suppose, does it not? I mean, for me, I honestly, I couldn't say. This is the worst interview ever, isn't it?
I'm enjoying it.
No, I can't, if I'm perfectly honest, because I don't really see it as some people may, I suppose. So.